Let's talk about knee pain. If you've been training for years, chances are you likely felt it. Whether it was some annoying MCL, ACL, or some patellar tendon pain that never goes fully away. But here is the truth. The knee is rarely the real problem. It is usually just the structure that has to pay the price for it. Most of the time the issue starts above or below the knee, so at the hips or at the feet. And that is what we will break down today. So if you've been stretching or icing your knee for forever, this video will show you where to actually start and what to do to get rid of your knee pain. The knee is what we call a hinge joint. So mainly it bends and straightens, flexion and extension. But here is something most people miss when they try to tackle knee issues. The knee also has some rotational components to it. It's called the screw-home mechanism. That means whenever you straighten your knee, the tibia, so the shin, needs to externally rotate in relative to the femur. And when we bend the knee, the tibia, so the shin, needs to internally rotate in relation to the femur so that the mechanism works properly. So yes, it's a hinge joint, but not a simple one. That little bit of rotation is what helps the knee to stabilize and to move smoothly. Now, if your hip and foot can't rotate properly, the knee is forced to twist more than it should. And this is usually where pain originates. So knee pain usually isn't about a weak knee, it's about missing motion somewhere else. Let's start with the hips. You need to ensure you have sufficient hip flexion and hip internal rotation available. And here is how you can test it. We will use the straight leg raise test to find out if we have sufficient range of motion available. The goal of this exercise is to raise the leg in a straight manner, so don't bend it throughout. And the goal is to reach about 70 to 80 degrees of range of motion. If you can't reach that degree of range of motion, you're very likely restricted at the back side of your pelvis, which obviously limits hip motion. But why does this matter? If your hip can't internally rotate, the femur won't move properly under load. And if the femur is missing rotation, guess who's taking the rotation instead? The knee. So instead of treating the knee, test the hip. Next, we look at the foot. The foot needs to be malleable and it needs to absorb, adapt and propel. So that means the foot needs to pronate and supinate. So if you can't pronate your foot, so basically if your arch never drops closer to the ground, you're probably restricted in force absorption and in hip internal rotation. If you can't supinate, you probably can't push off effectively, because after pronation, force absorption, after dropping the arch of the foot closer to the ground, the foot has to resupinate, and this resupination comes with external rotation up the chain. So that means if you can't supinate your foot, you're probably limited in the orientation of the whole leg when we're straightening it into external rotation. So to find out if our foot can pronate and supinate, we will use the following drill, which is actually a pronation drill, but this pronation drill will show us if we have the ability to drop the arch closer to the ground, but also resupinate as we come back in space. And again, if the foot can't rotate, the knee tries to do it instead. Once you've tested the hips and feet, you know where the limitations start. If the issue starts at the hips, we're going to restore hip internal rotation and hip flexion. If the issue starts at the foot, we're going to either restore foot pronation or foot supination. Don't just stretch the knee or do isometrics, restore movement through the chain. Because the hip can only move properly if the hip and foot allow it. Here are two simple exercises on how to improve both issues. The first exercise is a front heel elevated split squat with contralateral loading. So basically we are elevating the front foot with a ramp so that the heel is slightly higher than the toes, which creates more space in the front of the ankle, which then helps us to learn how to absorb force and pronate the foot. The contralateral loading will ensure we are working on hip internal rotation. And the second drill that we are going to choose is a goblet squat, also with heel elevation, but the foot in a toe-off position. That means that the toes are on the ground while the heel is elevated, and this then creates this push-off position of the foot, which then helps to reshape the arch of the foot and really helps to produce force into the ground. Together, these two exercises will cover both movement strategies. So one will help to restore hip internal rotation and foot pronation, whereas the other one will help to work on the resupination of the foot and the push-off phase. And remember this, the screw-home mechanism, so that small twist during flexion and extension of the knee, should help to improve motion, not compensate for a lack of motion. When it's doing its job, it stabilizes the knee. When it's overused, it irritates the knee. So your goal isn't to fix the knee. The goal is to restore rotation above and below the knee. So the next time you deal with knee pain, don't start at the knee. Start at your hips or at your feet. So the next time you deal with knee pain, don't start at the knee. Look at the hips or at the feet. If your hip can't internally rotate or your foot can't pronate or supinate, this is where you should start, because this is where the real problem lies. Restore those movements and the knee will do what it's supposed to. It will hinge, rotate, absorb and produce force in a pain-free manner. If you found this helpful, then share this with someone who's dealing with knee pain and might need some help. If you need some help with your own training, whether that is getting rid of pain, learn some muscle ups, or compete in competitions, or overall get better in how you're moving, then reach out for my one-on-one online coaching. The waitlist is down below in the comments. And if you want to get some insights in how I work, then subscribe to my newsletter. And if you haven't done yet, please like and share this video so you don't miss out on any new content. That's it for this week. See you in